So I've read the first reading that we had this morning that Beth read to us a number of times, and I come back to this reading over and over again, actually, because it always speaks to me in a little different fashion. And this time when I read that reading of the man on death row staring at the television screen, seeing image after image of these angry faces, some from the Klan, some from Greenpeace, and some from the U.S. Senate, when I read that account, this is the image this year that came to my mind. Some of you may be familiar with this image, and some of you not. It's become kind of an iconic representation of integration of schools here in the United States. This is a picture from 1957 in September on the steps of Little Rock Central High School. The woman here in the front carrying her books is named Elizabeth Eckford, and she was one of the Little Rock Nine, one of the first students to form integrated classes. And the woman just over her shoulder yelling is named Hazel Bryan. Both of these people were young women at the time, girls. They were both 15 years old, although they look a little bit older to me in that image. And both of these women have spoken year after year. They're both still living, and they've talked about how this one image has come to define a huge part of their lives and identity. They've met each other. They formed a friendship for some years and had a little falling out after that, but they both get together from time to time to talk about this. But all I know of these women from this image is a very black and white photo that is defined by someone's anger. It's very easy to reduce these women to protagonist and antagonist for me. Honestly, I don't see a lot of myself in that picture. It's easy for me to know who the good and the bad, who the us and the them are in that photo. A little too easy, I think. That image could make me think that that kind of anger that defines human beings and reduces them to the color of their skin or the political party that they associate with, that image could lead me to believe that that kind of anger is something that only other people have, particularly people who lived in particular places a long time ago. Thank you very much. At least not us. And yet I know that recently I've encountered those tendencies again within my own heart. For those of you who are visiting us from parts of the country near and far and Canada, you may have heard that we have had some political activity recently in our state capital here in Texas. A large debate, and a very public one, about our legislature and reproductive rights and choices here in the state. And I have participated in some of these rallies here in Dallas and watched friends and colleagues go down to Austin and participate in rallies, and the image that comes to my mind there is one of being able to tell all I needed to know about someone by the color of their shirt. Labels never accurately define a human being, the fullness of a human life, but the people who identify under the label pro-life are in blue shirts here in the center of the Capitol Rotunda praying. The people who identify themselves with the label pro-choice are in the orange shirts around them. I understand that some of them are understandably angry. If you get a group of people together and tell them that one group of people is harming innocents and the other is waging a full-scale attack on women's bodies, and then you put them in different colored t-shirts and throw them into a room together, no surprise, we didn't get a lot of dialogue. I found myself believing that I knew all I needed to know about these people from the color of their shirt. I know who they voted for in the last election and who they'll vote for in the next one. I know what kind of music they listen to, what kind of cars they drive. I know where they go to church and how they keep their lawns. Or at least I think I know those things. I found even within my own life how easy it was to look at another human being and instantly distill them down to one issue or the color of the shirt that they were wearing. This reminded me of a study that I encountered in 2008 from Colorado State University. And in this study, they were looking at what leads people to engage in road rage. They were trying to find what type of personalities or what type of characteristics lead us to use our space in an aggressive way to others, particularly on the road. What they found was that the one factor that was most significant, not your age, not your political party, not your religious belief, not the make and model of your car or how much it's worth or how much you make, the factor that contributed the most to a person's propensity to use their vehicle in an aggressive way was the number of bumper stickers and identifying markers on that car. Now, I would say that this has nothing to do with Unitarian Universalists, except for the way I got this image was I Googled the phrase Unitarian car. Let it sink in for a minute. Now, I apologized to our friends from near and far if that was indeed their vehicle. But the people in the study, the sociologists and the psychologists involved, found what they believed to be a territorial issue at hand when we begin marking the space that we inhabit as being my values. Thank you very much. You didn't ask what I thought, but I'm going to tell you. They found that when we begin to mark a space, whether it's a car or a t-shirt, a church, a city, as being about my people, my values, that we are much more likely to believe that that space needs to be defended from another. The more I mark it as mine with me, the more often other people seem to me a danger to that. Like I said, not relevant for us at all. Now, it's not as simple as that, really. I know that deep in me is a place that responds to significant difference in ways that I don't like to admit in front of a group of people. And I remembered a story that I've told some of you here before, but was on my heart for this week again, of a moment I had at the Massachusetts State House when I was in seminary. We were gathered because there was a motion on the floor to put gay marriage or marriage equality up to a vote of the people, even after it was already the law of the land. And so the camps got their people and we went to the State House, literally on different sides of the street. We stared at one another chanting and singing songs, many of us talking about standing on the side of love, but our faces looking much like the same angry faces in the reading. Same for the other side of the street. And then they opened the doors to the State House and let us all go in together. Now, we didn't have different t-shirts on that let me know who was in favor, who was against, and we sat down to watch the legislators do their work, and I sat next to a guy from the other side. I was going to show him how enlightened I was. But I just want to listen to what you have to say. I just want a dialogue. I'm so interested and open-minded. Come on, man. He was having none of it because he knew that I wasn't being honest. I didn't want a dialogue with him. A rally is not a dialogue. A rally is a time where people from one side or another show up in a room to show that they have more people than the other side or can be louder. But I pretended and used dialogue as a weapon that day. I wanted him to have to talk to me so I could either prove him wrong or make him know how good-hearted and enlightened and sweet that our side was, that he would feel shame by the time he left that room. If I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I think that's what I really wanted. It didn't matter if he changed his mind. The legislators were doing the voting. I think deep inside, I wanted this individual to feel shame. Or just go away entirely. I found myself thinking thoughts that we would be better off and things would be easier and just community would be more possible if he and his kind just weren't around. And I felt in that moment a very dangerous place in me that responded to significant difference by wanting another person to disappear. I understand that kind of visceral response to that difference, though, and I'm assuming that others have. The person with the bumper sticker that identifies them as not one of us comes careening past you on the highway, and of course they always drive like that. They don't care about anybody else, and it's this me-first mentality that's really putting other people at risk. Thank you very much. My heart rate goes up, my hands begin to grip around the steering wheel, my knuckles get white, I'm short of breath, convinced that once again they are putting me at risk. It's a very deep and ancient part of us biologically. I understand it from our evolution. It makes sense that I find a sense of safety within us and a sense of fear in them. But they are not a charging army coming to the door of my hut or my village. They are not an animal chasing me or my children down. And to respond with the same biological impulse of fight, flight that I would to a true threat to my very existence every time somebody has a different opinion, literally can kill us. It eats away at us. And it's not beloved community on earth. I find that for me, basic mindfulness practice helps me in that moment of determining when I'm experiencing useful anger and when I'm filling my veins with poison. 99% of the time, my anger is actually not useful. Me being angry at the person driving or on the television screen or the website comments section, thank God. Me being mad at that didn't feed anybody. It didn't produce dialogue. It didn't build a road. It didn't dig a well. It didn't make sure that someone had access to justice. I imagine that if Pema Chodron were here today, she'd walk up in her nun's robes and stare me in the face and remind me of the Buddhist wisdom that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting that the other person is going to die. In those moments, I find it's helpful literally just to give voice to what's happening. Heart racing, short of breath, tight chest, feeling scared. Helps me distinguish the moments when I am scared because there is a real threat to me or someone, or when I'm filling myself with poison. I think that this is relevant for us as a church community precisely because I believe if we base our coming together and our sense of safety and meaning around being with like-minded people, then we destroy the possibility of that community ever feeling safe from the very beginning. Let me say what I mean. I often hear this phrase in Unitarian Universalist context, which makes me a little puzzled. Oftentimes people will say something to the extent of, I'm just so glad that I finally found this diverse place full of like-minded people. So you've said it or heard it. I'm just so glad I finally found this diverse place full of like-minded people. I hear that more often than I thought I would. And what actually gets me about that is that if my sense of safety in these walls or meaning is defined on people who think like I do, then I'm never going to feel safe there. If I'm spending all of my time running away from the them that's out there, let's, for purposes of exploration only, put the word conservatives there. If I came here because I knew that there were like-minded people and not those conservatives out there, then the only way this community stays safe is if I'm on the watch for things and people that look conservative, or at least more conservative than me. In that scenario, other people are a threat to my church, and I become a threat to theirs. Nobody can fit the standard of everybody else's standard. And then we create an environment in which we praise diversity and say we like it, but everyone's really afraid to speak up honestly, because if they're found out as not being blank enough, they won't belong. You can tell by the shifting in the chairs that you're either bored or it resonates. I saw an image from the rallies in Austin that I think proposed an alternative vision of community. One woman is in her orange shirt that she brought with her, and another woman is in her blue shirt. Both of them are in the room where people were testifying and offering their words to the Texas legislature. And after their testimony, these two women embraced. Now, if you think it's hard to do that with someone, it was hard to find a picture of someone doing that. I don't know these women's story. I couldn't find their names. I have no idea what they said. But what I see from that image is that they believe they can be who they are and stand up strong for what they believe without the other woman needing to disappear. See, our theology and our tradition affirms that we're all in this together or we're not. We affirm that once we were the same thing. When a point of light and hydrogen gas exploded billions of years ago, you and I were literally contained in the same molecules. And the universe since that point has trended toward greater diversity and cooperation. Single cells became many cells, became bodies, became tribes, became societies. The universe desires diversity and cooperation among the parts. Why would we do anything else? Each week within the walls of this sanctuary, we affirm that this congregation exists for the purpose of all souls growing in harmony with the divine. I love that phrase. All souls. Our challenge is to ask ourselves whether or not we mean the word all. Because really, we don't have time for anything else. A human life is very short. And you and I, before we know it, and far sooner than most of us would like, are going to give our bodies back to the earth. And each moment I spend either way is one that I don't get back. Whether it's offering a hand or building a bridge or pouring more contempt into my veins. Each moment we spend, we don't get back. As a faith community, as Unitarian Universalists, I believe that our calling is to create and get excited about and speak about and hold ourselves accountable to a vision of beloved community that does have room for all. It doesn't mean that this church is going to have people who agree all the time. People will go to different communities. But it means that the interior movement of our heart knows that the world we build has room for all souls. Whether we're having a cup of coffee in the fellowship hall, or whether we're in a discussion group at church or in a classroom or marching in the streets for justice, the angry faces that we have the most responsibility for and control over are our own. This place does not exist so that other people out there will be more compassionate. My challenge is to watch our language, to watch our feelings and thoughts, to watch those moments when we've distilled a human being to the color of their shirt or their opinion on a news item, and join together day by day, conversation by conversation, action by action, until we do build a community that fits and fills all living souls. And to that vision and our hope that we accomplish it more each day, I say, Amen.